Welcome to Crunchy Stewardship. I'm Chrissy Rombach.
And I'm Katie Fiola-Jones. We're cousins on a mission to honor God by stewarding our health spiritually, mentally, and physically.
From ancestral nutrition and natural remedies to biblical finance and holistic health, we are digging deep into how God intended us to live.
So grab yourself a raw milk latte and join us as we unpack the ins and outs of Crunchy Stewardship. Hey, Crunchy friend, welcome back to our fifth episode of Crunchy Stewardship. I guess fifth episode of season 2, but I believe that this is like our 36th or so episode. I actually closed down the spreadsheet that had all of the numbers on it because I realized I had too many tabs open as we were getting ready to record this.
It is the 36th episode.
Wow, look
Good
at
job,
me.
you remembered.
I literally glanced at it once and somehow it stuck in my mind. So that is pretty impressive for my short-term memory there. Well, our 36th official episode, but the fifth one of 2026. We are very excited to bring you this episode. We are going to talk about the book Good Energy today. But before we dive in, I thought it would be fun to share maybe a little life update with you because actually Chrissy is going to be hearing this for the first time. For those who have been following along with our podcast and stuff, I've mentioned a few times that we moved to Michigan last year, so 2025, and we've been in a temporary house since we moved here, and we bought a house for ourselves back in September of 2025, but it is now February of 2026 as we're recording this, and we are not yet in our house. We've been fixing it up, but we officially now have a move-in date for getting into the house, officially, finally. And I am just so ecstatic because as I'm currently recording this, I am in my husband's office at church. He is the next gen pastor at our church here, and the Wi-Fi at our current place is not super reliable. We're very thankful for where we live, but the Wi-Fi just goes in and out often. And for recording's sake, that is not great because we need good, reliable internet to make sure that this gets recorded properly and all the stuff. So anyway, I'm excited to have our own place and to have our own Wi-Fi to deal with. And hopefully it will be excellent Wi-Fi to do all of our podcasts. So that is our little life update. Chrissy, do you have any little life updates or anything you want to share? Or you could just dive into your random revelation if you feel like it.
I guess we're starting a garden. So
Yay.
I'm excited about that. Apparently, the month you're supposed to plant your vegetables is February, even though it's still pretty cold outside. So I plan on going to our cute little garden shop sometime this week or next week. I don't know, whenever it happens. And I'm going to pick out some leafy greens. But my problem is I don't have a wide variety of things that I can grow because we have so much shade on our balcony and not very much sun just because of the way the sun comes up behind the building during the summertime and then goes down behind the building also. And so hard to really plant something when you have no sun. But we're going to try because I have like 3 to 5 hours of sunlight on the balcony in a day. So, yeah, that's my update. I haven't actually done it yet, but we're going to do it. I have a little planter on our balcony that's like maybe 3x5, 2x4. I don't know. I can fit maybe 3 plants in it, and I'm excited. It's going to be good.
Are you doing like seeds from like the start, like you're starting your seeds
Absolutely
and then
not.
planting them outside? Okay,
No.
well, I was wondering why you have to plant them in February. It must just be your climate out there because for us, February is like if you want to February, March-ish is if you want to start the seeds inside, like from literally seeds.
Oh.
But I don't know.
No, I don't know. I'm just going to go to the garden shop and talk to people and figure it out.
That's a good way to do it.
I tried to learn on Facebook, but no one was answering my questions exactly how I wanted them to be answered, so I figured I just needed to go talk to somebody. You know?
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyways,
Well,
so
yeah, you're sharing our random revelation of the day. And why don't you share with us your random revelation-y thing?
Yes. So this random revelation I learned on an episode from Josh Axe when he actually interviewed the founder of the company Jasper, which is the Jasper air filter that we have talked about a few times on this podcast. And I learned in that podcast that your sense of smell can have a 50% impact on your digestion. And so merely just by improving your air quality and removing synthetic fragrances from your home, you can improve your smell, which then improves your digestion, which is just wild to me. They actually went through the science of it. And if you think about it, when you have so many synthetic fragrances, your nose kind of gets blinded. And so you can't smell food as easily. And you and I have both noticed this as we got rid of all the fragrances in our lives. Now we're standing next to someone and we're like, oh my gosh, it's potent, you know? Or like anytime I wear perfume now, I feel like I'm like tasting it all day long because it's just so strong. And so the whole thought was if you get rid of those synthetic fragrances and clean the air, then your sense of smell starts to work better, which then impacts your body's preparedness to take in food. And so it's like you're able to smell the food, which starts the salivating process, which starts the digestion process before you even take a bite of the food. And so
that's wild.
Yeah, so your body's like more prepared to digest food when you can smell it better. So anyways, that's what I learned. Getting rid of fragrances improves your digestion.
I have so many thoughts on this right now. I'm like sitting here with my mouth open because Wes and I have been trying to figure it out, but in this whole journey of becoming crunchier, basically, but I would say becoming healthier in general, we have noticed that onions are like way more potent in smell. I may have mentioned this at some point. I've had this conversation before. I have always thought it was because we've switched to organic onions, and we often get organic onions from a local farmer, so they're much fresher than anything that would be store-bought, even if it is organic. Anyway, the onions have never made my eyes water, really. Just growing up, I just never really had that problem. But all of a sudden now I have. Oh yeah, we have talked about this because I have also thought maybe it's because I don't wear contacts as often and so my eyes are watering. But I do just feel like the onions are way more powerful. So I've had a few different theories. The contact one is one of them, which we talked about in our, I don't even remember when we talked about that, in what episode, maybe our eye episode or something. And then I've also thought maybe it's the organic onions are just more potent in some way, shape, or form. But now it's interesting you say that because, yeah, we've also eliminated all of the synthetic fragrances. And so I am more acutely aware of people's fabric softeners and those kinds of scents, lotions, perfumes, and it does give me headaches quicker. So I do also wonder if maybe that's adding to the onion effect or something. Who knows? That's so crazy.
Very possibly. I've actually noticed the same thing with onions. And to the point where my eyes even started watering the other day when I cut a shallot, which a shallot usually doesn't.
It's usually not. Yeah.
Yeah. But I actually have started, I have like, what are they called? I have stoggles, like stylish goggles that I wore when I worked in the hospital during COVID because we were required to wear eye protection. I was like, I'm not going to wear safety goggles at work all the time. And so I got stoggles. So they look like normal glasses, but they're closed in on all sides. And so I wear those in order to cut onions now to protect my eyes.
Does it not just burn your nose already? Because that's how it is for me. It's like I smell it and I'm already like, oh.
No, it burns my eyes way more than my nose. It doesn't really bother my nose.
Well,
it's funny.
I don't know. If anybody else has a theory on that, let us know. I'm curious.
Or if you ever so desire to have more effect from your onion cutting, just take out all the fragrances from your life and boom, there you go. Speaking of fragrances, no, I have one more thing before you say that.
Oh, I have one more thing.
Is
You do your one thing.
I need somebody to tell me a good, fragrance-free, phthalate-free, paraben-free, all the free good stuff shampoo that is equivalent to Head and Shoulders. Because my husband has dandruff, and anytime I have tried to switch his shampoo, he just turns into a snowflake. And so I need something that is good that also works for anti-dandruff. So anyone hearing this right now, let us know over in our Facebook group, Crunchy Christian Mamas on a Budget, if you know of any anti-dandruff, crunchy, healthy, good for you shampoo that I can convince my husband to use, because he's still using Head and Shoulders and I don't really know what to buy at this point. So,
yes,
let us know.
I have a thought on that. I did learn recently that your food intake can also impact dandruff, because all of a sudden, out of the blue, I've been struggling with dandruff, and this is so random, but I was asking Google Gemini about it, and I was just like, what are some natural ways to help with dandruff? One of them was actually apple cider vinegar after you shower, or like after you shampoo, doing like a rub of apple cider vinegar. I think it's just plain apple cider vinegar. I could look it up. But the other thing was, it said something along the lines of, it might also be related to a vitamin D deficiency or a vitamin, I don't remember, I don't remember. I'm just throwing something out there. A deficiency. And so I said, like, well, I'm already taking cod liver oil, because then it followed up with recommending something like taking cod liver oil because it's high in vitamin A and D, and Google Gemini knows me and knows that I like Weston A. Price stuff. So they mentioned that. And I was like, well, I am already taking a cod liver oil. I took a picture of it and I sent it in. I was like, this is the one I'm taking. Is that good enough? And I am taking like a fermented cod liver oil. And they mentioned that the brand that I'm using has often been found that the cod liver oil in it with the fermentation is rancid by the time that you are taking it. And so it's not like necessarily I take it and you notice a rancidness to it, because you think about like all of our vegetable and seed oils are technically rancid by the time that we're using them. So you don't notice it per se. But I learned that, and I was like, well, that's super fascinating, because me taking this new cod liver oil, because we recently switched, it does coincide with me having just like a ton of dandruff all of a sudden. So we're going to switch to yet another cod liver oil that Weston A. Price Foundation also recommends. And so I am going to try that and see if it helps relieve the dandruff. So it could also be diet related, which, as we talk about good energy, we'll also dive into and talk about how food really is, again, guys, it's like the source of everything. So
that's true. I don't know. I'll have to do some research. He's traveling a lot right now for work. So he told me I'm not allowed to test a new strategy until he's done traveling in April. So I have some time to do research, because last thing you want is to be presenting in front of a group of like 150 people and have like snowflakes on your shoulders. So
yeah,
that's not fun.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, let's get into the true topic of today's episode, which is more so on the food topic. We are going to be talking about the book Good Energy by Casey and Callie Means. That is, Casey is the girl and Callie is the guy. Actually, I learned a fun thing. They just came out with a podcast. It's called Breaking Big Food. It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh.
And I'm really excited about it. Casey and Callie Means are in it. Alex Clark is in it. So it's going to be a really great podcast. I just heard about it today. So I think it might be on my list of things to do this weekend, is to rent it and watch it. So very excited. Wait. But today we're doing what?
Is it a podcast and you're renting it?
Oh, sorry. No, it's a documentary. Did I say podcast?
Oh, got it. I actually think I've watched that, now that you say that. That is funny. I do definitely think I've watched it. You said podcast, and I literally was pulling up my podcast. I think you said it twice, that it's podcast. So now I'm a little disappointed.
Sorry.
But Yes, I actually
Sorry.
think I did watch that. And it was pretty good.
We should tell Casey Means and Callie Means to create a podcast, though, because I would listen to that wholeheartedly.
Me too.
Anyways, with that being said, the book Good Energy. I think first off, we'll just give like a quick little summary of what is this book about? What kind of mindset do we need to have when reading this book? Because it doesn't have like a plot line, obviously. It's an educational book. So, general summary is the whole book is an argument that sugar and blood sugar levels is the source of metabolic disease, which is the cause of most chronic illnesses, including type 2 diabetes, cancer, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, I don't know, whatever their chronic disease is, arthritis, all these things. So that's their main argument. And they present a good energy plan. And throughout the book, they compare good energy with bad energy. And essentially, their good energy plan is teaching your cells how to use energy properly in order to maximize your life, essentially. So the main concepts include metabolism being the root cause of all disease. They use a lot of biomarkers and tracking. One thing that she recommends a lot is a continuous glucose monitor, like a Dexcom or a Freestyle. But if you're not diabetic, it's really hard to get those. So there are places where you can get them. And I think actually her company lets you buy them. I think. Don't quote me on that. Anyways, and then she also gives a nutrition framework. Instead of promoting any specific diet, like a keto diet or a vegan diet or a carnivore diet, she pretty much talks about 6 specific foods that you want to avoid at all costs, and then emphasizes including whole foods, nutrient-dense foods, organic foods, things like that. So that's pretty much the foundational baseline of this book. Katie, if you could give the book a rating on a scale, on like a 5-star scale, 1 to 5 stars, how many stars would you give it?
Yeah, on my Goodreads account, actually, I gave it a 4-star. I chose that rating because it's a really good book. I learned a lot, but it's not necessarily a book that I'm like, I want to go and give it to everybody, if that makes sense. I will highly recommend it. Obviously, we're having this conversation because both you and I really liked the book and did really enjoy it. But there were certain elements to the book that I didn't necessarily enjoy, particularly the end. You and I have talked about that. She kind of gets into like some more, the way that I describe it is more woo-woo stuff. And it was just kind of strange when she was talking about like aligning with the stars and just the energy of the world. And in like some regards, I agree, but it was just like the way that she kind of talked about it was not my favorite. But all leading up to that, I really enjoyed it. One of the things I really like about Casey Means in general is she's on a mission really to expose the medical industry for a lot of its shortcomings. I want to be like kind here because, and she says this in the book too, most people who get into the medical industry in whatever way, shape, or form are not in it just solely to make tons and tons of money. They get in it to help people, right? They get in it to save people, to essentially make people healthy. But then oftentimes what happens with many people in different medical professions is they come to this point where they're like, we're not really making people healthy. We're just fixing the one acute problem at this moment and then like playing whack-a-mole with all of their other symptoms and problems and challenges that they're facing with their health. So, I mean, a really good example in my own life or that I've recognized is with our foster daughter. she has dealt with lots and lots of different medical things her entire life. And for something like eczema, whenever we would go to the doctor, they would just be like, here's another steroid cream, here's a different prescription, here you can try this. But now what I've learned is that eczema is really the root cause of eczema is really more in your gut, and it needs to be healed like from within in order to fix your skin. And eczema is like an outward portrayal of something that's imbalanced internally. So, but it's not that her doctor didn't know that. It's more just like that was always where she would go to. So my point is that what Casey Means is doing in her book is trying to help expose that our medical system is flawed. It is not helping us actually get healthy. It is really just fixing symptoms, making you feel better temporarily, but then the root problem is never actually healed. It's never fixed. So we're just in this cycle of needing to go back to the doctor and get more surgeries and medications. And yeah, so her whole mission is to help us heal from the base of what's really causing all of the problems. So yeah, what about you, Chrissy? What rating would you give it and why?
I honestly think I would give it 4.5, but since you have to give it a whole number, I guess I would round up to a 5-star. It was definitely one of those books that while I was listening to it, I really did not want to turn my car off because I just wanted to continue listening because the information that she was sharing just sounded so incredibly profound, even though it was so simple of all disease stems from the gut. But the way she was describing it was the process of how these diseases stem from the gut and how different foods affect your body differently, and the importance of being able to understand your body. I just kind of ate it up. And I had my husband listen to this book also. And I remember he was in the airport or something. He sent me a text. He said, "This book is crazy." And then, of course, he got home and we forgot to talk about it. So I actually still don't know what he thought of it fully. But he just said, this book is absolutely wild. Now, I have to agree, I really did not appreciate the last chapter. It was very woo-woo. I didn't love her connection to the stars and her dead mom and feeling her dead mom alive within her kind of weirdness. It kind of, honestly, to me, it sounded like she was on a trip. Like she had taken some sort of drugs or mushrooms or something, and she was kind of relaying that. Which, if it was some sort of maybe ecstasy, ecstasy can have medical benefits. It's actually effective in treating anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, PTSD, things like that. But it got out of hand, and that's why it's illegal now. And so, yeah, I kind of just wonder what exactly, if she took anything that gave her that weird experience in the last chapter. But if I could chop off the last chapter, I would recommend this book to absolutely everybody. Yeah. And when I do recommend it, I just tell them not to read the last chapter because it's not worth it.
One other thing I will say about it that is, I think, a good thing, but also can be a very overwhelming thing for people, and it was for me at times, is she goes into a lot of detail with, she goes into specifics of exactly where you want all of your labs to be, which I think is very helpful in certain regards. But at the same time, a lot of these concepts, I think, really boil down to getting back to having whole foods the way that God originally designed them, having them very minimally processed, so as you're cooking, trying to keep them as closely to the original form, and trying to keep a good balance of having lots of proteins, really good healthy fats, getting your vegetables, getting your fruits. And so for me, I'm definitely at a place where I love a lot of what the Weston A. Price Foundation says, and they don't go into a lot of like, oh, you want all of your labs and your things to be at this place and testing and monitoring. However, I think I've been very fortunate that I have not ever been at a place where I've had a chronic illness, or I am not chronically obese. I'm not battling any kind of, even just like overweightness in general. So if you are someone who is battling a chronic illness, or even just simply overeating, or you're on that diabetes scale, this could be very helpful because you might need more information to be able to monitor and set goals for yourself. So for me, it was like really overwhelming with a lot of the numbers. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even think I want to get into a lot of these things for myself. But I could see how this could be so beneficial for even people in our family who do struggle with these things and might need more of that like goal, because maybe they are already somebody who monitors these things and gets tests like blood tests and different things along those lines. So to me, it was like not a benefit, and I can see that it could be very overwhelming for certain people, even if you are in either camp. But it also could be very helpful if you're trying to really stay within those boxes. So I did end up writing down all of those scores and everything, the different markers. But I was like, man, I don't know. This just feels like a test. And she gives you a quiz in the book and everything of like where you're at. But the quiz actually was a lot more lifestyle related, which I was like, oh, I like this. Like, it just seemed really simple to be like, one of the very first questions was, are you keeping a food journal? And it was like, yes or no. And then you like tally up all the things. Like most of them were like, you do want to be doing this. And so you tally it all up and get a score. And so those things I really like, because those for me felt more actionable than going and like getting the labs and monitoring all the things. But I can also see how that's super, super helpful for tons of people who really need that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree when she was talking about all the lab values and like the very specific things. It was kind of overwhelming, but I kind of put it in the category of my brain of, I'll come back to these numbers when I'm going to my primary care in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to be drawing my labs. I'm going to request these additional tests, my cortisol, my fasting insulin, which I did request my fasting insulin last year. And she looked me dead in the eye. She said, that doesn't really tell us much, but sure. And I was like, you know what? She still did it for me. So I will ask for my cortisol. I will ask for my fasting insulin. I will probably also ask for my testosterone, since that one was high before and I brought it back to its normal range. And so I would like to keep it there. I know. I'm so happy. It only took me like a month and a half to get it back within normal range. And so
that's awesome.
Made me really happy.
And the main thing you're doing is like diet change, right?
I have supplements. No medications. Really, diet and lifestyle change has been the biggest thing. And even now, like, we've kind of finished the whole, for new listeners, I've been working with a naturopath. My husband and I have been trying to get pregnant, having a hard time. And so we said, you know what, we're going to try to fix our hormones naturally to start off. And so we are working with a naturopath, and they brought us through this whole program of restricting our diet, eliminating multiple things in our diet till essentially we were just eating meat and vegetables, and then slowly but surely adding food back in. And I'm just so happy with the results. I feel like my body is less sensitive now to most foods than it was before, except for foods that aren't real food. Like, I'm more sensitive to not real food, but less sensitive to the real foods that gave me stomach aches before, if that makes any sense. For instance, I used to get like incredibly debilitating cramping abdominal pain whenever I ate broccoli. I don't think I ever told you that, Katie, but I would eat broccoli and just be like done for the rest of the day. And they did a food sensitivities test, and I was not sensitive to broccoli. I said, that's a lie. I can't eat broccoli. And they said, no, actually, you're probably just sensitive to a bunch of other things and it's causing your body to react to broccoli because it might just be a little bit more difficult to digest or something like that. And so it's like a chain reaction. And lo and behold, 2 weeks in after taking out not even everything, just like half the things that they had us taking out, I could tolerate broccoli again. No problem.
That is wild.
And
See,
yeah.
it's just, I love hearing stories like this because for me, again, like I've never really been at a place where I have been, like, I've never been debilitated by something like broccoli, like it's never really been a challenge. Certain foods make me gassier than others, but I'm like, there's never been a really big anything. I got into the crunchy space more. What's that phrase that they use on Alex Clark's podcast all the time?
They say, are you sick or are you smart?
Yes, exactly. So, like, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I really have never been a sick person. I mean, I've had things, but I didn't get into the crunchy space because I was sick. It was more, I guess, honestly, for me, it was more on the curiosity road. And then I happened to read some books and it was like, oh, so I guess maybe that puts me into the smart camp. But I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm so smart and now I'm so crunchy. But it's just like, God just blessed me to be able to get on this road. So when I hear stories like yours, where people are actually having these incredible impacts and changes in their lives for the better due to just lifestyle and nutrition and food, it's like, it really does work and it's amazing and I love it and it's just so exciting. So I'm like, yay, praise the Lord. This is so cool.
Praise God. When you eat the food that he created straight from the ground, you're just so much better. It's actually kind of fascinating, like looking back and seeing how through diet, even my own symptoms have changed, because I didn't think I had any symptoms when I started, but I had a migraine maybe once or twice a week. I just thought it was fine. I'd get a headache and it was pretty bad. Like, it hurt. I got kind of dizzy sometimes, slightly nauseous, but like I still kind of went going throughout my day because I wasn't going to let something stop me. And I would get migraines. I used to get hot flashes every single night.
What?
Yes, I was constantly bloated, very gassy all the time. And another symptom that I've learned that I haven't quite pinpointed what exactly it is itchy eardrum or itchy ear canals is another symptom that apparently is a sign of metabolic disease that.
Whoa.
Yeah. I still have itchy ear canals every now and then, but they were more so before. And so I didn't even know that these symptoms were symptoms until they started going away. And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't desired to take Excedrin in like 4 months. And I'm not getting hot flashes every night. And like my ears aren't always itchy. And yeah, and my skin has cleared up. Like, I don't have acne nearly as much anymore, except whenever I eat a bunch of sugar, then I get like 4 pimples the next day. And I'm like, dang it. And also my back pain is gone. I did also used to have, yes, neck and back pain. Pretty bad, honestly. Well, not bad. Like, I never took anything for it, but like it was there. If I sat all day or stood all day, like I would notice it. And my neck was always stiff. I always blamed it on the fact I was in a car accident in high school and it was just like residual whiplash or something like that. But changed my diet and now my back doesn't hurt, my neck doesn't hurt, except when I eat a lot of sugar for multiple days in a row, all of a sudden my back and neck start to hurt. And then I take sugar out and boom, 36 hours later, my back and neck don't hurt anymore. It's wild, Katie.
I know.
Totally.
It shouldn't be wild, which is like all kind of Casey means point is like we have had these answers forever and our health does not lie behind another medication or surgery or any kind of intervention. It really is just getting back to the way that God created it. And she doesn't say that necessarily in her book. Like she does. I mean, like, I think occasionally she brought in like some Christian stuff, but very like little stuff. So
is she a Christian?
I don't think so.
She doesn't sound like it.
No, I think she is like accepting and tolerable of Christianity, like not a
Yeah.
basher necessarily, but she's definitely conservative, like more conservative and right leaning if you think about it like politically. But I think that's more because right now the political landscape is that RFK is right leaning and conservative leaning because of what all this going on. But interestingly enough, if you don't know politics, like RFK used to be a Democrat, but he left the Democratic Party because he was really disappointed with all of the values that they kind of have turned away from. And so then he became independent. He actually still considers himself independent. Like if you look at him, he's like independent. But now, because of how Charlie Kirk, actually, he was the one who kind of helped band together RFK and Trump in the elections. And it's, people say that that's why Trump won the election, was because of RFK teaming up with him and stuff. So it's hard to say, obviously. I'm not super involved. I know enough to obviously share what I've just shared. All that to say, I don't know about Casey Means and where she stands religiously and all that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't say that she is a Christian. And yeah, but anyway.
Nonetheless, though, even if she isn't a Christian, she still has a really great foundation of metabolic disease and how to go about healing your body from the inside out. And not that she would say it, but using the resources that God has given us to heal our bodies. So, Katie, let's go through the 25 good energy habits. She kind of breaks them up into nutrition, movement, sleep, meal timing, environmental factors, toxins in nature, and then mental health. So she breaks them up into 7 different sections. And I thought maybe I would start with the nutrition section. So at the beginning of the book, she goes through 8 nutrition, like what to eat and what not to eat, essentially. And she's very strict on her dietary laws. I'm calling them dietary laws because the way she presents them in the book is very much like you shall not and you shall all the time. And I think that's just not 100% feasible for everyone every day, even for me. Like,
Yeah.
I eat meat at least twice a day and I have eggs at breakfast. So that's like 3 sources of a high protein thing. And I still don't think I'm getting as much protein as she recommends every day. But either way, things that she recommends you eliminate 100% is all forms of refined added sugars, refined grains, and industrial seed oils, which Katie and I have really talked about those a lot, of how sugar really is like the addiction that slowly kills you. Refined grains, we've talked about it, especially on our bread episode, which I think was the 4th or 5th episode that we ever had on here. We go really in depth into the processing of modern refined grains and how they all started, where they've come, and what happened to all of it, and the beauty of milling your own wheat to create bread or to make bread, which is what we have been doing, and we love it. So if you want to learn more about refined flours and things like that, go listen to that episode. We'll also link it down in the description here. The other one, industrial seed oils, we've talked about that multiple times, especially in our seed oil episode, that it just causes a bunch of oxidative stress and creates an environment for disease to grow in your body. And then she also says to make sure you are getting at least 50 grams of fiber daily, which I honestly have no idea how much fiber I eat on a daily basis. Couldn't tell you. I eat vegetables a lot, but I don't know how much fiber is in it. 3+ servings of probiotic foods, which would include sauerkraut, kvass, raw yogurt, kefir, kimchi. And honestly, that's a lot to think about because I'm not going to eat kimchi or sauerkraut with every single meal or yogurt with every meal. I don't know. I think 3 probiotic foods is a little excessive, but I have to say my Naturopath did tell me to get at least 2 different forms of probiotics each day because he was going to tell me to take a probiotic. And I said, well, can I just eat food? And he said, yes, but make sure it's 2 different kinds each day, which I'm still working on that. But so you can do it with food. Probably easier, honestly, to just take a probiotic if I'm going to be completely honest. But if you really love kimchi and sauerkraut, go for it. All the power to you. She also says 2+ grams of omega-3s, which is found in wild caught fish and sardines. She says to maximize plant diversity, so making sure you have lots of colorful organic fruits and vegetables, which have a lot of polyphenols in them. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Eat the Rainbow, of making sure your plate has the rainbow of food on it. So she's a big one in that world. And then she says 30 plus grams of protein per meal, which that's a lot. That's really hard for me. And I don't eat that much per meal. I might have like 80 grams of protein by the end of the day, I think. But I think also the general recommendation in the crunchy world for protein is, what is it, Katie? 0.8 grams per pound that you weigh. Is that what it is?
I actually was just going to try to look it up on like how her principles compare to Weston A. Price Foundation principles for protein because okay, here we go. The good energy protein, blah, 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 blah. Sorry, I'm reading it right now. And it says, yeah, so this is, I think, okay, so this is where I struggled with some of the things that she had recommended because she does give very specifics as far as like, you must eat and you must do this and blah, blah, blah. Whereas like in Weston A. Price Foundation studies, which I talk about him all the time because I love what he did. And what he really did was study the people who are eating traditionally as like literally like how God originally intended it. And like within their like specific land and region and what they were provided. And the people who were the healthiest, not every single group ate that amount of protein is more my point. And certain groups of people only had protein like 2 times a week, but they were very like rich sources of protein, meaning that they were very fresh. It was things that were slaughtered like that day. So you think of somebody having like lamb that was fresh from the field and eating really green pasture, and they would have that like twice a week or whatever. And so I just looked it up that Weston A. Price doesn't really have like a necessarily like a threshold for protein. So I don't know what the general consensus is with the crunchy world, but I think that the consensus is that it needs to be high quality, and you do need to, I think that we don't get enough protein and good proteins today. And I have been trying to increase my protein intake and been like eating, like I don't know. I didn't eat as much meat before. I did, but I didn't once I tracked it. And I was like, oh, I really don't get a lot of protein. So that's my roundabout answer to your question.
But you're saying your girl dinners didn't include just a steak?
Oh, I had way too much pasta before I became crunchy. Just so much pasta.
Lots of pasta. I have to agree. I am having pasta for dinner tomorrow night, though. Shameless plug.
Yeah.
It is a high protein pasta, though. It's made of chickpeas.
There you go. I actually really like that kind of pasta. We've had it several times. It's really yummy.
Well, okay, so side note, the Banza brand has other like added ingredients to it that I don't love.
Yeah.
So I actually found Whole Foods brand chickpea pasta is straight just ground chickpeas into pasta form.
Oh.
So
Nice.
For reference. For anyone listening. All right, Katie, you want to go through the movement section?
Yeah, maybe I'll do movement and sleep together because they're kind of almost like opposites. So movements, yeah. She recommends moving throughout the day. So if you caught us on our, 2 episodes ago, Chrissy talked about her movement snacks. Was it that was what it was called, movement snacks. And so that's kind of what she talks about in her book, is like getting up regularly throughout the day just to get the blood pumping, go for a little walk around your office or around your house or down the block or whatever, just getting movement more frequently throughout the day. She also recommended walking after meals. So that's like 10 to 15 minutes to help with those glucose spikes. It helps to make sure that they don't spike so high. And that's one thing that I've been trying to do myself, is just to like, okay, we'll just like get some movement in around the house after a meal. She also recommends doing strength training 2 to 3 times a week, which I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that is a good reminder to be lifting those weights that I don't lift right now. So yes, muscle tone. And I've heard this so many times, and I know that it is such a problem. I know that I need to build up my muscles. So do that. She also talks about being in your, or build zone 2 cardio, which if I remember, it's like actually being in that zone where you have to pause to like catch your breath to talk. Is that right, Chrissy?
Yeah, like you shouldn't be able to carry on a conversation easily, but you can still talk.
Mm-hmm. And I think she talked about doing that for like 30 minutes a day or so, which also is hard for me. I do pretty well about the movement throughout the day, but the actual like lifting weights and then getting into your cardio zone has not been on my radar as much at this very moment. And yeah. But okay, so those are the habits for movement, but then in sleep she has 2 habits. The first one is getting 7.5 to 8.5 hours of sleep, which we talked a lot about in our last episode, all on sleep. So go check that out. We actually did mention her talk about sleep in the book. And then her other one is maintain consistent sleep-wake times. So basically staying and sticking with your actual circadian rhythm. So going to sleep at consistent times and staying asleep until a consistent time, and not like differing throughout the week. So a lot of us tend to have different sleep patterns on the weekend than we do the weekdays. She says, keep it the same. So it's better for your metabolism and health and all the things. Yep.
Yeah. So then she also goes into meal timing. She recommends a 14-hour overnight fast. So essentially eating between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. and then allowing your body to fast for 14 hours between 6 to 8 a.m. That helps to improve your metabolism and decreases your fasting insulin. And then she then states the opposite. She says follow an eating window, i.e. 10 hours eating window. And then she says also to practice mindful eating. So that involves really focusing on the food that you're eating, making sure to like get the smell of it in before you actually start eating the food, not being distracted by a book or your phone or the computer. And to really just focus on the food you're eating to enjoy it. They've actually done studies that if you're in a good mood while you're eating, you're going to digest the food better than if you're in a bad mood. And so that's one of the reasons why social eating is really good for you. It makes you feel happier while you're eating and doesn't lead to bad habits like eating when stressed and eating when angry and things like that. So that's her meal timing. And then she also talks about environmental factors. She says to maximize morning sunlight with at least 15 minutes being outside within the first hour of waking up. Which honestly, that's kind of hard if you wake up 2 hours before the sun comes up in the wintertime. But I digress. She says to minimize blue light at night, which we also talked about in our sleep episode. She talks about wearing blue light glasses and changing your light bulbs so that they're not LED and all the things. And avoiding screens, obviously. And then she talks about heat and cold exposure. She recommends 60 minutes of heat exposure like a sauna or a bath per week, and then 12 minutes of cold exposure like a cold shower or a cold plunge each week. So that sounds horrible to me. I Fun fact, I did do a cold plunge this weekend for some research on one of our future episodes on biohacking. So stay tuned to hear how that went. But I'm going to give you a little proof on that one. I'm not a fan of cold plunges. They're just not enjoyable to me. And I think they just make me angry because Max told me I was prickly for the entire day. And the friends that I was cold plunging with, I had to apologize to them because they were like kicking their feet under the water. And I kind of yelled at them to stop kicking their feet because it was making it colder. So, um, anyways, cold plunge makes me prickly, but she says it's good for you.
Is that me? Am I up? I'm like over here laughing at you. Okay. Maybe I'll end it with the second or the last two sections. So we have the section toxins and nature. So she says that we should be drinking clean filtered water, which means avoiding things like fluoride and chlorine in water, as well as microplastics. There's a lot of bad stuff in water. We actually did do a whole episode on water. You could go check that out for more details. Then she talks about non-toxic home and personal care. So again, going back to that whole thing about fragrance that Christy and I were talking about earlier. So making sure you don't have the obnoxious, unnatural fragrances and any like chemical heavy cleaners in your household because they are endocrine disrupting and toxic to all the things in your body, including, can cause cancers and all sorts of bad stuff. Were you going to say something? You looked like you were excited to say something. So I was like, oh, I'll pause.
I was excited because my nose stopped running for a second.
That is so exciting.
I was able to catch it.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Chrissy. Okay. Then she says that we should be spending 4 hours in nature weekly. So that is something I would love to be able to do more, but it's really hard in the winter. And then her last section is on mental and emotional health. And she talks about practicing stress management and highlights the importance of your emotional health on your metabolic markers, which is kind of fascinating. But yeah, so as we're wrapping up on the 25 habits, I think it would be interesting if we kind of just briefly talk about what we want to be doing next in our lives, as well as just like any thoughts that we had on any of these. My first one is actually just talking about your silliness and making fun of eating probiotic-rich foods, which is something that Weston A. Price Foundation also puts a very heavy emphasis on, Chrissy. And it is something that we are trying to do. So I've been making a lot of sauerkraut, and I make like fermented ginger carrots, which I love putting on top of everything. And then this week we started doing more kefir. And so I've been actually putting kefir in my yogurt, or not my yogurt, gosh, that's like basically saying I put yogurt in my yogurt because kefir is basically like yogurt. It's like in between. It's like, okay, so kefir, milk, yogurt, and sour cream are all like the same thing, but just in different fermented stages, basically. And some of them are just more sour than one another. So anyway, we have been doing more kefir. I put it in my oatmeal is what I was going to say. So yeah, it's been good. I actually really like it.
Do you make your kefir from your raw milk?
No, I do make my own yogurt.
Mm.
So I've been doing that. I'm making homemade yogurt, which again, yogurt and kefir are just like different stages, but kefir is slightly more fermented. It's more liquidy, and the way that it ferments just makes it more sour tasting. I don't know. I just haven't decided to make it, and it's only $3 for a quart of it from our dairy farmer, so I just get it from him. And
oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
I would too, honestly. Let him do the work.
But along those lines, so her first question in the quiz that she has in her book is about having a food journal. And I have never really done food journaling before. I used to do the app called, I think it's called My Plate. I think that's what it's called. I really liked that for a while because I was able to scan all the foods that I was eating and put in there like, it would give you all of the data on the food that you were eating as far as like how many nutrients you were getting, all the macro and micronutrients and fats and blah, 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 all the things. They would tell you all this stuff and you could try and hit your goals. And I actually was doing that in the process of trying to get pregnant. I don't know if we've ever talked about that, but it was slightly to try and get pregnant, but I had also gained like a little bit of weight. So it was also slightly like a weight thing for me. Because I was like 5 to 10 pounds more than I wanted to be. But it was just a little thing. Anyway, so I enjoyed doing that. But the thing that I was actually going to say is that I have actually started keeping kind of like a food journal. I have actually started using my Google Gemini to track everything. So after every meal, I tell Google what I've eaten and all the stuff about it. And then I've told it some of these things, like here are my goals. One of my goals also is to wait at least 2 hours between every meal, which we actually talked about in our last episode as a thing. So I've been doing that for the last like almost a week now or so. And it's been really interesting because then I can kind of go back and like I'll put in my mood and how I'm feeling and different symptoms I might be feeling, energy, all this stuff to try and see if it's related to any foods and just seeing if I'm hitting my food goals as far as like how many like proteins I want to be eating and not having sugar, which today I made cookies and I had 3 cookies and they were like, oh. But what's also cool is that Google has been giving me recommendations like, oh, it seems like you've been having a lot of gluten and things like that. So they'll recommend, hey, at your next meal, make sure to add more probiotic rich foods to help you digest your food better. So then I will just do a few scoops of kefir, even if it's just eating it on the side. And so it just kind of like helps recommend that to like better digest your food and all this stuff. So my goals are more based on like the Weston A. Price Foundation stuff, but they are a little bit based on what she has specifically put in her goals as well. So yeah, it's been kind of fun and interesting. And yeah.
That's fun. I have kept a food journal. When I took my nutrition class in college, we were required to keep a food journal for 1 week. And the hardest part with it for me was we weren't allowed to just write down burger. We had to write down 2 pieces of bread and 1 patty and 2 pieces of cheese and lettuce and tomato and ketchup and mustard and French fries with salt. And seeing that entire giant list of food really made it hard for me to eat because I was seeing, oh my gosh, I just ate so much food, when in reality it was probably just what I needed, And so personally, keeping a food tracker or a food diary is not great for my mental health. It makes me feel like I'm just eating so much, even if I'm really not. I've thought about how my food diary would look different now than it did when I was in college, because I did snack throughout the day frequently when I was in college. And yes, I ate my microwave mac and cheese on my way to my nutrition class, which is kind of ironic if you think about it. And now I would hope that my meal tracker would be more encouraging to me, mostly just because I do reflect on my meals throughout the day at the end of the day. But it's helpful for me to not see every ingredient, because seeing every single thing makes me feel like I'm overeating and then causes an unhealthy relationship with food in my mind. So that is one habit that she recommended that I am just not going to do, because I've done it before and it wasn't good for me. And it's not worth it. Actually, can I share something kind of funny the other day? So for reference, Katie and I we have about the same body physique. Like, we're not large humans by any means, but we're also not like stick thin, right? I would categorize myself as being a very healthy weight, and I've been the same weight since I was in 8th grade. Doesn't really fluctuate all that much. And one of my patients yesterday, I was pulling something out of my bag, and she looked at me dead straight and she goes, "Do you know how to gain weight?" I said, "Yeah, actually I do when I lift weights more." She said, "Okay, I was just making sure because, you're really thin." I was like,
Okay, cool, thanks.
wow. Okay, thanks for letting me know. I recognize I have less body fat than the average human, but I am a healthy BMI and I have a healthy body fat percentage and I feel good and I look good. So,
Well, gosh, I have a lot of thoughts on that. And since we're getting close to the end of the episode, I will not say them right now. And maybe they aren't the kindest either. So I will also save them because
we can talk
that's
about
frustrating.
Them later. How about that? I know. But it was one of those.
Now everyone's like, what are you thinking?
I know. It was one of those I kind of just had to giggle and like, well, actually, my body is working much better than yours right now. So I sorry. I just kind of laughed it off and played along with it. But anyways, in terms of good energy habits that I am trying to adopt and be better at is maintaining the low to no refined flours in my diet. Since we started working with a naturopath, we took out all forms of flour at one point. But I have since added them back in, and even though I do have a sensitivity to wheat and gluten and pretty much all forms of dairy and grains, I still eat it, because my body is not as sensitive to it as it was before. I'm not eating it in huge quantities, but if I am given something, I will eat it. And I've just noticed, like, even with that mindset of saying, like, yes, this is allowed sometimes, as opposed to saying, I'm just not going to have it, I have found myself eating more without intending to. So even refined flours like coconut flour or almond flour or oat flour, things like that, they're better than regular white bread flour or all-purpose flour, but it's still not the best for you because they're still refined. So I'm working on trying to just limit flour in general. And it's a battle. It's so hard because I feel like every time somebody cooks for us, then we're just getting refined grains in one way, shape, or form, whether it be rice or flour or whatever. But that is my thing. And, when I'm in control of the food that I eat, then I can follow it. And when I'm served something, then I think it's very okay to accept the things that are served to you and to just enjoy it, Yeah. Count it as a blessing.
Ask God to use it to bless and nourish your body as much as possible. And you just, I mean, could you imagine like going, like I just think about when I would go on like the short-term missions and you're kind of taught like whatever they feed you, you're supposed to just be thankful for and eat it. But could you imagine going over there and be like, oh no, this doesn't fit within my healthy eating stuff, and then being like, I
did that. I went to the Middle
Christina.
East. Oh, I went to the Middle East and they tried to serve me a Pepsi. We went into a woman's home. And she fed us chicken and salad and rice. And it was delicious, so good. And then they brought out Pepsi. They had a whole tray of Pepsis and passed them out. And I said, no, thank you. I don't eat sugar. And this girl looked at this woman who was like hosting us. She looked at me. She said, oh, that's amazing.
Wow.
I was not expecting that reaction. I was expecting her to be kind of offended that I refused the Pepsi, but she thought it was amazing. And then she tried to tell me to eat a cookie at the end of the meal. And I said, no, that has sugar in it. And she said, but it's good for you. It's healthy. I said, no, it has sugar in it. She said, you're wild or something like that. Like just
so wild.
A culturally appropriate, like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
can't believe you would do that in like a really honoring kind of way. But
Yeah.
it was a very funny interaction. I love cultural things. They're so fun.
It is a very hard road to walk when you are just trying to eat healthier. I mean, my gosh, I'd like to do an episode where we talk more on nutritional guidelines and like just diving deep into like, when do you say yes and when do you say no? Because I mean, one of the things, like here at church, they do snacks a lot for kids, and they're often like goldfish or fruit snacks and all these things. And I often say no, and they usually are like, you don't want your kid to eat snacks? Like what? And so I've been bringing him his own snacks so that they're like, I'm like, oh, I prefer him not to have these, but here are the snacks that he can eat. And nobody's really questioned it, but I do definitely get some looks of like, huh? But I'm like, can we just like stop feeding our children stuff that's like making them very unhealthy? I don't know. I feel very strongly about that, but I don't yet feel like I'm in a place where I can try and make change yet, because I'm still such a newbie here that I'm like, I have to like hold my tongue, but still stand up for my child, because I want him to eat food that is actually going to make him feel better. Because he literally, Chrissy, the other day came home from a church event, and I think that they did give him snacks, even though I asked them not to. And he was like jumping off the walls and was just insane. And Wes and I like had not really seen him like in this really buzzy mood before. And we were like, what is going on? And Wes was like, do you think that they like maybe gave him the snacks? And it was crazy that he was the one who mentioned it first and not me. And I was like, you're right. They probably fed him. And I like kind of got angry and upset. And I was like, okay, calm down. His system will process this eventually and the toxins will be out. But it was one of those moments where I was like, I can't believe it. You're probably right, because he doesn't act like this. He's usually a very composed toddler, not like perfect, but like general happy toddler. And that was just wildness. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've never seen him like this. It was crazy.
That's crazy. Well, we all know food has such a great impact on our health. And to be completely honest, there's so much more that we could talk about in regards to good energy and healthy eating and diets, but we have neared the end of this episode, so I'm just going to leave us with one last reminder, and that is, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, make sure you are doing it all for the glory of God. And with that, we will see you guys next time. Thanks for listening to Crunchy Stewardship.